So patient will catch his or her breath because of pain that would be elicited due to deep palpation, which is known as Murphy sign, indicative of acute calculus cholecystitis. And there will be associated tachycardia, absent or hypoactive bowel sounds. Bowel sounds may be absent. The presence of fever, persistent tachycardia, low blood pressure, or jaundice, it necessitates a search for complications of gallstones like cholecystitis, cholangitis. What is cholecystitis? It is inflammation of gallbladder. Similarly, another complication that might happen is cholangitis. What is cholangitis? That is inflammation of bile duct. And lastly, pancreatitis means inflammation of the pancreas. So, how do you diagnose cholelithiasis? Patients with uncomplicated cholelithiasis or simple biliary colic typically have normal laboratory tests. Laboratory tests are generally not necessary unless complications are suspected. So, what laboratory tests do you perform? We do complete blood count with differential count. In complete blood count, what do we see? Hemoglobin, total leukocyte count, differential count like neutrophil, lymphocyte, eosinophil, basophil, okay, platelet count. Next is liver function panel. What do you mean by liver? We see total bilirubin, direct bilirubin, like aminotransferase. Total protein and serum albumin. So these all parameter counts on the liver function panel. And to rule out pancreatitis, we need to do serum amylase or lipase. And as you know that serum amylase is secreted by many other organs as well, like salivary glands, intestines. So serum lipase is the enzyme that is specifically secreted by pancreatic parenchymal tissue. So raised serum lipase is more confirmatory for pancreatitis. Okay? So these are the blood investigations. Besides that, you need to do renal function parameters like blood urea, creatinine, sodium, potassium levels. Besides blood investigations, what else will you do? Imaging modalities. So what is the imaging modality you do? The first imaging modality we perform is ultrasonography of the abdomen to confirm the cholelithiasis. So in ultrasound, how does it look? Ultrasound will see the gallbladder status, whether it is shrunken gallbladder, whether it is distended gallbladder, whether it is inflamed gallbladder. Okay? So if it is inflamed gallbladder, ultrasound will see the wall thickness of the gallbladder. Normal wall thickness is around 1 to 2 millimeters. So if it is more than 2 millimeter thickness of the wall of the gallbladder, that could be detected by ultrasound. We suspect inflammatory conditions like cholecystitis. Sometimes there is 4 millimeters, 5 millimeters. Okay? Similarly, gallbladder is well distended or semi-distended, and within the lumen, you could see stone. But ultrasound as such cannot define it as a stone. But ultrasonologically, how it defines? Because as you know that ultrasound means you are throwing sound waves, echogenic waves. So that sound waves will hit the object, and that object will create images in the ultrasonogram screen. So that images would be echogenic images. So echogenic images may be high density like hyperechoic, or normal density like normoechoic, or low density like hypoechoic. So stone being the hard objects. So usually stone is seen as echogenic, hyperechoic lesions within the gallbladder lumen. And another characteristic feature would be that echogenic lesions, if it is suspected to be the stone, that will throw posterior acoustic shadows in ultrasound. This is the ultrasonological features, images I'm describing. So how does they describe? There is hyperechoic lesions measuring about 10 by 10 millimeters within the lumen of the gallbladder. That is throwing posterior acoustic shadows, whether it is solitary or multiple. That is suggestive of gallstone. But if it is polypoidal mass lesions within the gallbladder lumen, sometimes there could be polypoidal mass, polyps, gallbladder polyps. So in that case, though it shows echogenic lesions, but that will not be throwing posterior acoustic shadows. This is how we differentiate space occupying lesions within the gallbladder lumen from gallstones. Okay? So ultrasound is very, very sensitive, more than 90% sensitive, more than 95% specific to detect gallstones and to differentiate gallstone from any other space occupying lesions within the gallbladder lumen. Another features to differentiate stones from space occupying lesion is if it's stone, that will change the position once you change the position of the patient, because gallstone will be floating within the gallbladder lumen. But if it is space occupying lesions like polypoidal mass or hard solid mass, it doesn't change the position. This is how we can differentiate gallstone from other lesions within the gallbladder. So ultrasonography is very, very sensitive. And these days, another investigation of choice is coming ahead. That is endoscopic ultrasonography. Earlier one is conventional ultrasound sonograph to detect gallstone. Now, what is the role of endoscopic ultrasonography? Sometimes, if there are multiple gallstones within the gallbladder lumen, stone, as you know that some of the stone can pass into the common bile duct. So, to detect common bile duct stone, conventional sonogram is not very sensitive. See the difference? To detect the gallstone within the gallbladder, conventional ultrasonogram is more sensitive. But to detect stone in the common bile duct that has been passed from the gallbladder, conventional ultrasonogram may not be that sensitive. Yes, in that case, to confirm that, endoscopic ultrasonography would be the investigation of choice. Okay? So these are the investigations we do. Besides that, there is role of CT scan, MRI, scintigraphy. Okay? But CT scan, MRI, when do we do? For every gallstone detection, we don't do CT scan, we don't do MRI, we don't do scintigraphy. But if you are suspecting space occupying lesions suggestive of tumor of the gallbladder, yes, in that case, you might need to do CT scan. If you are suspecting tumor lesions in the bile duct or stones, yes, endoscopic ultrasonography is already there. Besides that, you can do MRI. But what MRI will you do? That is MRCP. We call it MRCP. That is done by MRI, magnetic resonance imaging. What is MRCP? That is magnetic resonance cholangiopancreatogram, MRCP. So that will delimit all hepatobiliary tree, and you can make out lesions outside the gallbladder, like bile duct, common hepatic duct, confluence of the bile duct, or intrahepatic bile duct. For that, yes, we do MRI, CT scan, and scintigraphy means HIDA scan, HIDA, hepatoimmunodiacetic acid test, HIDA. HIDA scan to detect functional status of the gallbladder. Sometimes we are not sure the particular gallbladder whether it is functioning or not. By the way, what is the function of the gallbladder? What is the function of the gallbladder? What it does? Does it produce bile? No. Bile is produced by liver, right? Cooper cells of the liver. So bile that is produced by liver will be stored in the gallbladder. Yet, and what it does in the gallbladder, there it gets concentrated. Water and bile acids will be absorbed by gallbladder mucosa. So bile becomes concentrated. And this bile would be pumped out under the influence of hormone cholecystokinin. And that mix up with food particles which promotes digestion. So this is the function of the gallbladder. Okay? So, what are the types of gallstone? What are the types of gallstones? Gallstones are basically of three types. One is cholesterol stone, another one is pigment stone, and third one is mixed stone. Mixed stone means mixture of both cholesterol and pigment. The common variety of gallstones we see in our regular practice is mixed type. So how this gallstone forms? What is the pathophysiology? What is the pathophysiology of formation of gallstones? So gallstone formation occurs due to substances in the bile. As I already mentioned that bile gets stored in the gallbladder. So there are certain substances in the bile that are present in concentrations that approach the limits of their solubility. When bile is concentrated in the gallbladder, it can become supersaturated with these substances. When bile is concentrated in the gallbladder, because water content of the bile acid gets absorbed, so bile becomes concentrated in the gallbladder. That can be supersaturated with these substances, which then precipitate from the solution as microscopic crystals. The crystals are trapped. These are the crystals which get trapped within the gallbladder mucus. And initially it produces the sludge. Over the time, these crystals grow, aggregate, and fuse to form macroscopic stones. Okay? So, there are basically two types of stones, as I mentioned, cholesterol stones and pigment stones, and lastly, mixed type. So, more than 80% of the gallstones in the United States, we should say, because in our context, the maximum gallstone we are getting is of mixed type. But in the United States, it is the more than 80% are of cholesterol type. Because cholesterol is the major component in the stone which we find. As we know that liver, it secretes cholesterol into the bile along with phospholipid. That is also known as lecithin in the form of small spherical membranous bubbles. That is termed as unilamellar vesicles. Liver cells also secrete bile salts, which are powerful detergents that required for the digestion and absorption of dietary fats. So these bile cells in the bile dissolve the unilamellar vesicles to form these soluble aggregates that is known as mixed micelles. This happens mainly in the gallbladder where bile is concentrated by the reabsorption of water and electrolytes. So compared with vesicles, mixed micelles have a lower carrying capacity of cholesterols. So these cholesterols for every 3 molecules of lecithin will deposit forming the cholesterol stones. So in other words, one of the mechanism pathophysiology of forming cholesterol stone is due to the supersaturation of the bile by cholesterol, supersaturated cholesterol. Okay? So this is the mechanism of formation of cholesterol stones. And another type of stone is pigment gallstones that contains, which is yellow pigment derived from the breakdown of the heme. As you know that, you know the bilirubin metabolism, right? Bilirubin, what is that? It is the yellow pigment that is derived from the breakdown of heme. Heme and globin. Globin goes in the amino acid pool. Heme further breakdown into bilirubin and iron, as you know that, right? That will be actively secreted into the bile by the liver cells. Most of the bilirubin in the bile is in the form of glucuronide conjugates, which are water soluble and stable. But a small proportion consists of unconjugated bilirubin. Unconjugated bilirubin like fatty acids, phosphate, carbonate, and other anions tends to form insoluble precipitates with calcium. Okay? So this is how calcium bilirubinate stones are formed. So in situations of high heme turnover, such as chronic hemolysis, conditions like chronic hemolysis or cirrhosis, or where unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia that may present in bile at higher than normal concentrations. So in that case, this calcium bilirubinate may then crystallize from the solution, eventually form the stones. So it is mainly pigment stones are formed in conditions like hemolytic anemia, sickle cell anemia, hereditary spherocytosis. So these are the conditions where pigment stones are likely to form. And hypertriglyceridemia, okay, hyperlipidemia, in which conditions cholesterol stones are likely to form. And lastly, mixed gallstones are cholesterol gallstones that may become colonized with bacteria and can elicit gallbladder mucosal inflammations. Okay? So how this bacterial infection occurs? What is the commonest organism? It is the Escherichia coli. E. coli is the gram-negative organisms that causes infection in the stagnant bile. So cholesterol gallstones, which is colonized with bacteria, that causes inflammation of the gallbladder mucosa. As a result, over time, cholesterol stone may accumulate substantial proportion of calcium bilirubinate and other calcium salts, producing mixed type of gallstones. So in our context, yes, the incidence of mixed gallstone is more common because of cholesterol stones, pigment stones with what? With infections of the stagnant bile. The common organism for infection is Escherichia coli. Okay? So cholesterol stones are more prone to develop in obese lady, pregnant lady, gallbladder stasis, hereditary. Okay? And Pigment stones are more prone to develop in conditions like hemolytic anemia due to sickle cell disease, hereditary spherocytosis, beta thalassemia. These are the conditions. Okay? So what are the clinical presentations of gallstone disease? Initially, I have mentioned there are 4 stages like lithogenic state, asymptomatic stage, in which case there may not be any symptoms, symptomless. But thirdly, there is symptomatic gallstones. So symptomatic gallstones is mainly characterized by biliary colic, right? So which is termed pain due to biliary colic occurs when gallstone or sludge impact in the cystic duct during gallbladder contraction. That increases the gallbladder wall tension. In most cases, it lasts for 1 hour to 5 hours sometimes. But that pain resolves on its own. Once this impacted stone gets dislodged from the cystic duct lumen because of contraction of the gallbladder. If stone gets impacted in the cystic duct, gallbladder cannot empty the bile. So gallbladder contracting more vigorously, causing biliary colic. But after some time, maybe in a couple of hours time, the stone gets dislodged from the impacted cystic duct. So that gallbladder contractions will evacuate the bile into the bile duct and patient will get relief from pain. So episodes of biliary colic are sporadic and unpredictable. Patient could localize the pain to the epigastrium or right upper quadrant and may describe the pain that will be radiating towards right scapular tip, which is also known as Collins sign, Collins, Collins sign. Usually pain begins after the meal, within an hour of preferably fatty meal. That often described as intense and dull. Okay? From the onset, pain increases steadily over 10 to 20 minutes. And that wanes on its own when gallbladder stops contracting and the stone falls back into the gallbladder. And this pain is not relieved by emesis, antacids, defecation, flatus. Other symptoms often associated with cholelithiasis include indigestion, dyspepsia, belching, bloating, and fat intolerance. You know, fatty meals aggravate the pain. So we always advise patients with cholelithiasis to avoid fatty meal. But these are all non-specific. Okay? So these are the things that happen in symptomatic stage 3. So on physical examinations, as I've already mentioned that, if it is biliary colic, pain is diffuse, not localized. But if it is inflammatory pain, yes, pain will be localized at the tip of the 9 costal cartilage that is aggravated with Murphy sign positive, associated with fevers. So this is how you should be able to differentiate the cause of pain. So pain could be whether it is due to biliary colic or due to inflammation of the gallbladder. That is known as cholecystitis. And one thing you always remember that fever is often present with cholecystitis rather than biliary colic. So along with fever, there may be tachycardia, nausea, vomiting. Okay? So lastly, the complications. So what are the complications of these gallstones? As I've already mentioned, that complication could be in the gallbladder. So what are the things that can happen within the gallbladder because of these gallstones? Number 1 is inflammations. That is known as cholecystitis. And cholecystitis could be acute cholecystitis or chronic cholecystitis. Similarly, there could be mucocele of the gallbladder, empyema of the gallbladder, calcified lesion of the gallbladder or gallbladder cancer. Okay? Malignancy. Similarly, if the stones pass into the common bile duct from cystic duct, and if stone gets impacted in the common bile duct, patient will develop obstructive jaundice because of obstruction of the common bile duct. Similarly, patient can have inflammation of the common bile duct, which we have already described earlier, that is cholangitis. So in the common bile duct, there may be cholangitis or obstructive jaundice. And if the stones falls from common bile duct and gets impacted in the ampulla of Vater. You know what is ampulla of Vater? It is the common passage that opens into the second part of the medial wall of the duodenum. Common passage from common bile duct and pancreatic duct. So, in the ampulla of Vater, if these stones block the pancreatic duct, what will happen? Pancreatic secretion starts accumulating within the pancreatic parenchyma, causing autodigestion of pancreatic tissue by these pancreatic enzymes, leading to acute pancreatitis. And the condition is known as acute biliary pancreatitis. So complication in the gallbladder, complication in the common bile duct, complication in the outside the common bile, that is in the pancreas, pancreatitis. And sometimes bigger gallstones, more than 2 centimeter stones. What will happen? Because of gravity, these stones compresses the duodenum, causing fistulous communication between gallbladder and duodenum, which is known as cholecystoduodenal fistula. So once there is a fistulous tract between gallbladder and duodenum, what will happen? Stone can pass into the duodenum instead of passing into the common bile duct. So from duodenum, where it goes? It goes into the small intestine. And at one point, this particular stone gets obstructed in particular part of this small intestine, having narrow lumen. So, which is the part of small intestine having narrowest lumen? It is in the terminal ileum, about 2 feet proximal to the ileocecal junction. So that part of the ileum has got narrow lumen. So this stone can get obstructed in that particular part of ileum, causing small bowel obstructions. That is known as gallstone ileus. Okay? So these are the various complications. So now you know the polylithiasis, you know the symptoms, lithogenic, asymptomatic, symptomatic, and complicated stage. You know the types of gallstones, that is your cholesterol stones, pigment stones, or mixed stones. You know the pathophysiology of formation of stones, like cholesterol stone is due to the supersaturation of the bile with cholesterol that is secreted from the liver. Similarly, pigment stones due to hemolytic conditions leading to unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, leading to pigment stones, and mixed stone is mixture of both. And clinical features of symptomatic gallstones and clinical fever, types of complications of gallstones. And you know how to diagnose gallstones. Various diagnostic investigative measures like blood investigations, like your imaging investigation, ultrasonogram, endoscopic ultrasound, CT scan, MRI in the form of MRCP, or HIDA scan like scintigraphy, HIDA. So once diagnosis is confirmed, okay, and you have to realize in which stage of clinical features this particular patient is having. Is he in the lithogenic stage? Is he in the asymptomatic stage? easy in the symptomatic stage or easy in the complicated stage. So you have to analyze these 4 stages. Depends upon these stages, you have to plan the treatment action. So in lithogenic stage, in the formation of stone forming concretions, so we don't do any surgical interventions. Rather, we advise patient to avoid excessive fatty meal, particularly animal fats, which is saturated fat. Okay, and there is no medications, only symptomatic. If patient is having biliary colic, we can give some antispasmodic drugs like hyoscine, butyl bromide, because it is not infective conditions, right? Similarly, if patient is in the asymptomatic stage, there is gallstones, images show gallstones, but patient doesn't have any symptoms. What do you do? What do you advise? Yes, if it is asymptomatic stage, the one probable thing you can do is wait and watch with avoidance of fatty meal. But there are certain conditions where you need to advise your patient to undergo surgical removal of gallbladder. So what are those conditions? Especially asymptomatic stage, if the patient is children, we don't want any complications to occur in children, right? So if it is children, we better advise patient to undergo surgery. Similarly, if patient is having underlying liver diseases like cirrhosis, portal hypertension, you better advise patient to undergo surgery, though patient is in the asymptomatic stage. Similarly, if the size of the stone is more than 2 centimeters, bigger stones, you better advise them to undergo surgery. Similarly, if patient is diabetic patients with asymptomatic stage, it's better to have surgical interventions. So these are the indications where you perform surgery, though patient is in asymptomatic stages. And for symptomatic stage, you know that the treatment of choice is surgery. And there is, sometimes your patient might ask, is there any medications that I can take to get rid of these stones? What do you say? Yes, there are. Stone dissoluting therapy. Stone dissoluting therapy. Like also, that is bisulfs. Also deoxycholic acid. Quinodeoxycholic acid, also deoxycholic acid. Okay? And usually what it does, particularly if it is pure cholesterol stones, to some extent, this also deoxycholic acid might help to dissolute, provided, what did I say? Pure cholesterol stones, which is more common in the United States rather than in Nepal. Okay? And you need to prescribe this medicine at least for 6 months to 18 months. Provided pure cholesterol stones, minimum prescription days is 6 months. That might extend up to 18 months, even 24 months. And once you stop these medications, there's every chance that stone might reoccur. So what do you say? Do you prescribe, do you advise, do you prefer your patient to take this stone dissoluting therapy, like also deoxycholic acid? No. First of all, you don't know whether it is pure cholesterol stone or not. In our context, the maximum getting is of mixed type. So this is also the deoxycholic acid, it doesn't help. And there is wastage of money. From 6 months, it's a very expensive tablet. One tablet in Nepal these days is also deoxycholic acid tablet. It comes in 300 milligram, costs 50 rupees. And you need to prescribe 3 times daily. TID we call. 300 milligram tablets 3 times daily for 6 months to 2 years. So how much do you think patient will spend? And that is also not sure. And once you stop, there is every chance that stone might reoccur again. So, the choice of treatment for gallstone disease or symptomatic cholelithiasis is cholecystectomy. Cholecystectomy means removal of gallbladder. You have no other choice but to take out the gallbladder. Okay? So now what is cholecystectomy? As you know that it is excision, removal of gallbladder. You know the history of cholecystectomy? The person who performed first cholecystectomy was Carl Langenbach. Carl Lagenbuch. Langenbach. He is the German fellow in the year 1882. More than 100 years, 150 years ago, he is the person to perform cholecystectomy in Berlin. Okay. 1882. Almost 100 years later, in the year 1987, I know, more than 107 years maybe, 108 years. In 1987, Philip Moret, Mouret, we pronounce Moret. Philip Moret is a French person. So Philip Moret in the year 1987 performed first laparoscopic cholecystectomy. 100 years later, open cholecystectomy was done in the year 1882, whereas laparoscopic cholecystectomy was done by Philippe Moret, French fellow in Lyon, France, not in Paris, in Lyon. This is another place of France. So he is the first person to perform laparoscopic cholecystectomy in 1987. Almost more than 100 years later of performing open cholecystectomy. And in the year 2014, maybe 6 years back, 6 years, yeah, this is 2020. So in the year 2014, laparoscopic cholecystectomy is considered as gold standard treatment for symptomatic cholelithiasis. Very interesting, right? Though the first laparoscopic cholecystectomy was performed in the year 1987, but still to consider it as a gold standard procedure, it was declared only in the year 2014, 6 years back. Since then, laparoscopic cholecystectomy is the treatment of choice for symptomatic cholelithiasis. So, if you get a multiple choice questions for what is the treatment option for symptomatic cholelithiasis, your answer should be laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Right? So, regarding symptomatic cholelithiasis, the gold standard treatment of choice is laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Besides laparoscopy, yes, we do have other options like open cholecystectomy, which is always there, or cholecystostomy. Okay? Just remember the terminology. One is laparoscopic cholecystectomy, treatment modalities. Another is open cholecystectomy. And lastly, cholecystostomy. So what is cholecystostomy? Cholecystostomy is making an opening in the gallbladder and take out the stones and closure of that opening by putting the drain. Because in cholecystostomy, you don't take out the gallbladder. Sometimes that modality of treatment also you might have to do, provided patient is very sick and bedridden, because you cannot perform cholecystectomy. So at least under local anesthesia, you can take out the stones from the gallbladder and put a drain inside the gallbladder and close it. That is called cholecystostomy. But that is indicated only in certain cases, not in every cases. So this is about cholelithiasis and its complication called cholecystitis. So one of the common complications of cholelithiasis is cholecystitis. That might be acute calculous cholecystitis or chronic calculous cholecystitis. So how do you differentiate between acute and chronic? Acute means sudden onset of severe pain in the right hypochondriac region at the tip of the 9 costal cartilage, radiating towards the scapular tip, right scapular tip, right shoulder tip, associated nausea, vomiting, fever, tachycardia. On examination, severe tenderness, Murphy signs can be elicited. But in chronic cholecystitis, patient will be having recurrent abdominal pain, recurrent, but not sudden severe, dull aching type of pain. And if you do the ultrasonogram in acute cholecystitis, you can see the edematous thickened wall gallbladder. But if it is chronic cholecystitis, it is fibrotic, shrunken gallbladder. And as you know, chronic cholecystitis can lead to gallbladder malignancy. Okay? Chronic cholecystitis can lead to gallbladder malignancy. So this is how you have to differentiate. So if patient comes with acute calculous cholecystitis, the treatment option would be, initially what do you do? If patient comes within 24 to 48 hours from the onset of attack of acute cholecystitic pain, yes, you can do immediate laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Immediate laparoscopic cholecystectomy, provided patient comes within 24 to 48 hours, not to extend beyond 72 hours. That is the treatment options. After resuscitating your patient, you can perform immediate laparoscopic cholecystectomy. If patient comes after 5 days, 6 days, we don't do immediate cholecystectomy. We admit the patient, we manage conservatively. If patient's condition improves, yes, we can plan for surgery during the same sitting of admissions. That is called early cholecystectomy. Now you should know the terminology. What is immediate cholecystectomy? What is early cholecystectomy? And what is elective cholecystectomy? So immediate means with the onset of symptoms within 48 hours, not to exceed 72 hours, you can do immediate cholecystectomy. And if patient comes after 72 hours, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days later, you manage conservatively, and if condition improves, you plan for surgery during the same sitting of admission. That is known as early cholecystectomy. And lastly, if you are performing surgery in a planned way, so you have to wait minimum of 6 to 8 weeks of an attack. If patient comes with an attack, acute attack, you manage conservatively by admitting the patient for a couple of days, and one patient gets improved, you can discharge the patient. You advise him or her to come after 6 to 8 weeks later to perform elective planned laparoscopic cholecystectomy. This is how acute calculous cholecystitis are managed. There is another terminology called acalculous cholecystitis. So what does it mean? One is calculus cholecystitis. Another one is acalculus, means inflammation of the gallbladder without stones. One is inflammation of the gallbladder with stones, that is known as calculus cholecystitis. And same thing, inflammation of the gallbladder in the absence of stones, that is known as acalculus cholecystitis. So, what are the conditions where patients are likely to develop acalculus cholecystitis? For example, if patient is chronically bedridden, prolonged fasting, keeping the patient nil by mouth. Similarly, patients who are admitted in intensive care unit. Okay? Patient with spinal cord injury. And patient who is put on total parenteral nutrition without giving enteral or oral nutrition. So these are the patient. Similarly, patient with burn, as burn patient who suffer from burn, they have to stay in the ICU or burn ICU for prolonged period on intravenous medications, intravenous alimentations. So these are the patients who are likely to develop acalculus cholecystitis. Because exact cause we don't know, but it has been assumed that if you do not allow your patient to take orally, what will happen? Cholecystokinin secretion is less. And cholecystokinin secretion, what it does, it will stimulate gallbladder to contract. Once there is absence of cholecystokinin, gallbladder remains static. And bile, which is there in the gallbladder, becomes stagnant. And stagnant bile is good media for organism to grow, causing inflammation without stones. That's why it is known as callus cholecystitis. And the condition I have already explained. And the treatment for calculus cholecystitis is, if it is repeated episodes of inflammatory pain without stones, you have no other choice but to advise your patient to undergo what? Cholecystectomy. Though there is absence of stones. Right? Otherwise, there are other complications can occur, like mucocele or empyema or perforation or what is that called? Calcifications. Calcification of the gallbladder. That is the pre-malignant conditions. And lastly, malignant conditions. Okay? So, this is in brief about cholelithiasis with cholecystitis. So, if you have any query, please do not hesitate to ask. Yeah, go ahead. What do you want to ask? Yes, Ashish Acharya, Abhishek Sharma, Janish Adhikari, Prasansa Adhikari. Do you have any queries? Huh? Anything would you like to ask about cholelithiasis? Yeah, regarding chronic cholecystitis, also the modality of treatment is laparoscopic cholecystectomy. The only thing there is gallbladder remains shrunken, fibrotic, right? So, which is the pre-malignant conditions that can lead to malignancy. So, it is not wise enough to ask your patient to wait and watch. Rather, you should advise him to undergo laparoscopic cholecystectomy, which is the gold standard for chronic cholecystitis as well. Okay, sir. Because I'm not going in detail about cholangitis because that is different topics. Cholangitis, obstructive jaundice, these are all different topics. I only mentioned the complications that can happen with gallstones. अर्को एउटा complication is Meiji syndrome. Okay, so I have already mentioned the name Meiji, Mirri, Mirri, Meiji syndrome. So I want you to explore what is Meiji syndrome, what are the classes of Meiji syndrome. Okay, so in next time, I would like to know from your side. Meiji syndrome is one of the complications of gallstones. So if nothing is there, so we'll stop it here. Okay, have a good weekend. Thank you, everybody.